Hey everybody, welcome to Zoo Nation, where we talk about the political zoo of a nation that we're in and talk about history and cover it as it unfolds. My name is Josh, and this is a part two, an unexpected part two, because it was arranged differently, the format of episode 19, than expected, and an important announcement came out. And it's not that I wasn't expecting the announcement from Governor DeSantis, it's just that I was wondering how to format this, whether to wait to another week or so Nathan can come back on. But I figured it happened. This is big news, so I need to cover it. So I want you to hear some things straight out of the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I've got a way of projecting audio into the microphone, so just bear with me. And we're going to go ahead and play the official announcement, and David Sachs and Elon Musk talk to Ron DeSantis, and I'm going to be playing when he announces his run, then playing some other videos he has on Twitter talking about his run as well. So here we go.
There, we had over 500,000 people in one Twitter space, and it was growing by like 50,000 a minute. So congrats on breaking the internet there.
Well, yeah. You try some, new things. So you're gonna.
Yes.
It's adventurous. So.
Yes.
But I think the value here is actually really high for people to hear directly from presidential candidates and to answer a Q&A live, and you can get a sense for how a candidate really is, and where it's not just canned speeches and teleprompters. It's in fact, you can tell by the some of the mistakes that it's real.
Yeah.
So, with that, I guess I should turn it over to.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So, yeah, Governor, there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple of months about your plans. I understand that you may have an announcement to make. We've got, I think, a record audience assembled here. Probably the biggest room that's probably ever been assembled online. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I am running for President of the United States to lead our great American comeback. Look, we know our country's going in the wrong direction. We see it with our eyes, and we feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country. Our cities are being hollowed out by spiking crime. The federal government's making it harder for the average family to make ends meet and to attain and maintain a middle-class lifestyle. And our president, well, he lacks vigor, flounders in the face of our nation's challenges, and he takes his cues from the woke mob. Bitcoin is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
All right, guys, so as you can hear, big announcement from Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, running on the Republican side. A presidential bid has been launched for 2024. And I held this up while I did this, so it'd be a little less distracting than looking at me and my facial expressions as I listened to this, even though I've heard it before. But I also wanted you to see this. Never back down. Ron DeSantis, a leader, a fighter, a winner. We got this a couple of months ago. And yeah, it's got different things here. Going to cover up the address. But you've got Join the Movement, Never Back Down. Never Back Down has also run ads. I don't know if you've seen them on TV. And it's official. He has filed with the RNC, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. This is from Newsmax. Entered the 2024 presidential race Wednesday, stepping into a crowded Republican primary contest that will test both his national appeal as a cultural conservative firebrand and the GOP's willingness to move on from former President Donald Trump. The 44-year-old Republican revealed his decision in a Federal Election Commission filing before an online conversation with Twitter CEO Elon Musk. And you kind of heard them allude to it a little bit there at the beginning, but they originally were going to have Elon on his Twitter account, Ron DeSantis on his, and David Sachs on his, and they ended up having to, Elon and David both had to go on David Sachs' Twitter account and use microphones there because apparently they had such big volume, 50,000 people were joining a minute, and it ended up crashing. And for a while, you would go to Ron DeSantis' feed and click on the link to open up his announcement, and you couldn't get it to load. Definitely not the first one. Then they had to put in a second one, which you can get, but even then, the one that's accessible, I've still had issues with that loading exactly because of the sheer number of volume and because Twitter Space is not the newest thing in the world. So yeah, to read on in the article, get to the facts of the matter, it marks a new chapter in his extraordinary rise from little-known congressman to two-term governor to a lead figure in the nation's bitter fights over race, gender, abortion, and other divisive issues. DeSantis is considered to be Trump's strongest Republican rival, even as the governor faces questions about his readiness for the national stage. DeSantis' audio-only announcement was to be streamed on Twitter Spaces beginning at 6 p.m. EDT. He was following up with primetime appearances on conservative programs, including Fox News and Mark Levin's radio show. So he's been going on these shows as well as going on Twitter. That's important to note. But he announced on a Twitter space with Elon Musk. I've listened to the entire, I've listened to other videos he's put on Twitter. I have listened to most of the announcement speech. I've listened to 48 minutes out of an hour. So now it's winding down. It's mainly just some esoteric, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I got to tell you, what I'm hearing I like. But to continue reading, DeSantis' entry into the Republican field has been rumored for months, and he's considered one of the party's strongest candidates in the quest to retake the White House from Democratic President Joe Biden. The 80-year-old incumbent, Republicans say, has pushed the nation too far left while failing to address inflation, immigration, and crime. The Republican nominee will face Biden on the general election ballot in November 2024. DeSantis begins his campaign in a top tier of two alongside Trump based on early public polling, fundraising, and campaign infrastructure. The two GOP powerhouses have much in common. Then it kind of goes on with things about DeSantis and Trump. DeSantis, who likely would not become the Florida governor without Trump's endorsement, has adopted the former president's fiery personality, his populist policies, and even some of his rhetoric and mannerisms. Yet DeSantis has one thing Trump does not, a credible claim that he may be more electable in a general election than Trump, who faces multiple legal threats and provides over Republican losses in 3 consecutive national elections. Notice the language. This after a 2022 retaking of the House, even though it wasn't a taking of the Senate, and Trump was like 180 to 20 when it came to the endorsements of his that did well, which is a pretty darn good record. And so, but they view that as a loss, I guess. I mean, this is how Newsmax is framing this. I mean, I don't want to go too much into how Trump's being treated unfairly. More will come out when Nathan, who's a little bit more on the DeSantis side, is here. And I'm not 100% for Trump, by the way, folks. I am someone that is trying to be sensible. I'm more for Trump than I'm for anyone else. However, I'm all for criticizing Trump. It's just that don't criticize Trump and then change the rules and place those rules/standards on a different candidate and say, oh, this guy passes with flying colors. Well, no. If someone has a record of calling for a shutdown, then talk about calling for a shutdown with another candidate. If some candidate talks positively about a jab, a vaccine during the times of COVID, and another guy does, then let's have apples to apples. Now, legislatively, it's a little different. How someone acts, what they do is probably different. But in terms of rhetoric and words, don't act like one is better than the other, is all I'm saying. Be fair. And that's my thing, is treat this situation fairly. And the other thing, guys, too, is the mindset of we're not going to have a perfect candidate. We're just not. No one in there is going to be running, and Josh is, there's no way Josh, or him, Nathan, when he's here, are going to be looking at a candidate saying, I'm 100% on board. There's going to be something where it's like, okay, that was not phrased right. Okay, that should have been better. Well, even though I agree with this guy in policy, I don't agree with his personal life. There's always going to be something wrong. So with that in sight. We need to have our principles, definitely, but there also is a point for pragmatism. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the whole Trump versus DeSantis thing without Nathan here to kind of balance things out. I do my best to be balanced, but he certainly helps. So we'll kind of go to another thing that I like about DeSantis. DeSantis goes after Fed digital currency from finance.yahoo.com. And to pull this up, Fed digital currency, it's funny, this is what Yahoo says, which does not... Come on. Sorry, guys, for technical issues. Trying to get this thing to load, which doesn't exist yet. Oh, that's hilarious. I mean, it's going to exist pretty soon. It'll come out in July. They use the most unflattering thumbnail ever, which is really funny. But yeah, finance.yahoo.com. The Federal Reserve's moves to make banking smoother and more accessible, notice the framing, are drawing political attacks from the two likely 2024 presidential candidates who allege that the central bank wants to surveil America's finances, take away their guns, or control how much gas they put in their car. So apparently, according to this, Trump is also talking about it, but DeSantis is. And so this is a good thing about both men, right? They're both talking in some ways about the possibility of a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, or FedNow, which is kind of a prototype for that. So we got that going on, right? And Trump has made an ad talking about, literally, actually at one point it says, the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum. That's great, good for Trump. And DeSantis here is talking about FedNow, which is a great thing. So, but I will say that there's a lot of attacks already being leveled at DeSantis. I mean, he announced Wednesday, today's Saturday. The reason I'm making this video is because I made a video Tuesday evening and DeSantis hadn't announced yet, so this is an important update. So we have a number of things from the dailymail.uk. DeSantis says you're more likely to get shot, with all caps, in Chicago than to get a good education, and slams pornographic, use of quotation marks by the dailymail.uk, books in schools in his first speech since launching his 2024 run. Ron DeSantis launched his education-related policies in his first remarks since the launch of his presidential run. So yeah, they're basically saying, oh, this is baseless. Why are you talking about pornography in the school system? You know, any reasonable person would say that that doesn't exist. As well as the idea of you getting shot in Chicago. Well, that's unlikely. I mean, it's definitely not fair to say you're more likely to get shot in Chicago than get a good education. That's the framing here. Ron DeSantis is contrasting his education-related policies in Florida with those of other jurisdictions, saying liberal enclaves have more crime than educational excellence. The Florida governor, in his first remarks since announcing his 2024 presidential campaign, said children are more likely to be shot than receive a good education in Chicago, and went all in against injecting gender ideology in elementary school. He also slammed critics that claim he has enacted a book ban in Florida, saying it is a hoax made up by liberals. And he talks about, you can go and buy a book in Florida. What is happening is there are parents looking at school curriculum and pushing back against that and saying, no, remove this book from the curriculum. That's a decision by a parent, not by Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has not banned anything. All he's done is told the school boards, you listen to your parents, and if there's a vote where the school board removes something and the parents are against it, you have to go along with it. Because parents should be in charge of the schools. Schools should not be in charge of parents and or schools in charge of kids. It should go, parents, teacher, kids. Parents are in charge of the kids, and parents are also in charge of the school boards and the teachers. So that should be what happens. And the idea that this is a controversial statement like, wow, parents want to be in charge of what their kids learn. I have a problem with that. It's so weird. It's such a bizarre attack. You'd think that the people that claim to be all for the little guy would be like, yeah, of course working class, not just whites, but blacks and Hispanics as well, should have a say about what their children are taught. So yeah, then we got this headline also from the dailymail.uk. If you ever doubt the dailymail.uk leans left, I mean, what I'm reading you is ample evidence, and there's plenty of evidence here, but some people act like the dailymail.uk leans right, or, oh, it tries to act like it's in the middle, but it's actually a white supremacist paper. It's like, what I'm reading you here is very, very clear that it's anti-Trump and anti-Ron DeSantis. So to get into this, presidential hopeful DeSantis inspires, basically it's another claim about book banning. Presidential hopeful DeSantis inspires push to make book bans easier in Republican-controlled states. I'm not going to linger on here too much because we're already almost at 15-minute mark, and this is just a quick update. So yeah, we've got that. Elon Musk also talked about Ron DeSantis' fundraising, and the DailyMail.uk is trying to say that a billionaire genius got his facts wrong. Elon Musk crows over Ron DeSantis' $8.4 million presidential fundraising record after a disastrous Twitter launch. Notice the framing. Only for his own tech firm's community notes to call him out as factually incorrect. So yeah, you've got the DailyMail.uk talking about how Elon is stupid, even though he's clearly not. And so it's just more lies, more silliness. I'm not even a guy that's just super pro Elon. I think what he's done with Twitter overall has been a good thing, but not great. I mean, there's still people that can't get back on Twitter that should be. And people like Mark Collette, who is not an evil, violent person, who had a Twitter, had it come back, and has been removed again. And regardless of what you think of Alex Jones for the conspiracy theory stuff, he does not call for violence, and he's not a criminal. And so Elon should allow Alex Jones to come back. So it's insane. It's crazy. He also is super into the whole transhumanist stuff, not transgenderism per se, but incorporating technology and surgically putting into a human body, which I have a big problem with. It goes against God's established order. It's one thing if you want to get prosthetic surgery because you had an arm blown off in combat or you were born without one. But it's another thing to say we should have chips on our heads to help us basically be one with technology. I have a massive problem with that. So, other headlines for the DailyMail.uk are going to be commented in the comments section where they belong, right? Here on Zoo Nation. Please follow us at Zoo_Nation_ on Instagram. Find us at Zoo Nation 1776. Most other places on social media, just Zoo Nation on Facebook. And follow us. We would really appreciate the feedback, the follow. Comment on this video. Are you super amped and excited for DeSantis' announcement? Or are you sticking with Trump? Are you going with Tim Scott or Nikki Haley? Or maybe Vivek Ramaswamy you think offers a lot? So let us know. Let us know, because Nathan and I are going to want to discuss this when he comes back on, when he's able to come back on. And we want to discuss what you guys want to hear. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode, part 2 of 19 of Zoo Nation. And everybody, have a great evening.